Welcome viewers. You've seen the footage of what's happening in Europe, 60,000 plus, so they say, of invaders during a what definitely appears to be a planned migration invasion, an escape from Morocco into the European region of Spain. And as Australians, we have the privilege of learning from the experiences of other nations before confronting similar pressures happening here. The difference between what's happening in Spain and what's happening in Australia is deliberately flying immigrants in against the will of the Australian people. The politicians have taken it upon themselves not to serve Australians, but to, for whatever political reasons and agendas that they're going to make as excuses, they're mass migrating immigrants from unvetted, in most cases, from places that will not be able to culturally or religiously integrate with the Christian way of life in Australia. And we can learn how these abuses on our space as Australians can become out of control, which they already are. They're completely out of control, and the politicians have no regard for this except for Pauline Hanson. Now, I believe Angus Taylor is going to use some of this for his agenda to get into leadership, but whether he is legitimate about it or not is going to be another thing, because if we look at the past relative to these different political parties, they've all fallen under the same umbrella. But Pauline Hanson, over the last 30 years, has held her status on the control of immigration, which is now out of control. Around the world, debates over irregular migration, border control, housing, infrastructure, public spending, and social cohesion have intensified as these vagrant, morally bankrupt governments have struggled to respond to sustained mass increases, unjustifiable increases in migration. And again, these people that are migrating are not able to, for the most part, overtly integrate into the Christian way of life. The question for Australia is not whether migration should exist, in sensible, vetted levels, but whether it can remain orderly, lawful, and within the nation's capacity to absorb it. And we can see that the politicians have thrown out the window, particularly the Albanese radical Labor, woke left, pro-Palestinian government has thrown away all regard to what the Australians are asking it, and that is to please just back it off. All opportunity for our children, for our youth, to have the Australian dream is gone now. I, Dr. JWA, don't think it's retrievable. I think it's become so abusive, financially abusive and greedy and negligent under the leadership of these vagrant politicians that the Australian dream for our children is gone in 2026, and I don't think it can return. We've got very wise, astute, successful business people fleeing the country in unprecedented masses due to the taxes upon taxes upon taxes that these governments are raping the Australian people with financially rape, pillaging and plundering us with. And I fear for the future of Australia relative to our children and grandchildren. I think the politicians in their negligence and their vagrant, morally bankrupt political pursuits have destroyed our country. And this has always been an underlying fear for the First Nations people. The invasion as it was itself from the colonists was never legitimate. And I think this will be a curse on the nation. Because as we're seeing now, the invaders are allowing themselves to be invaded. So it's become one invasion to another. I know that's a very heavy word, but it has to be said that way because the colonists were told not to try and inhabit lands that were already inhabited. But they did anyway. The experiences discussed in Europe and what we're witnessing now, 60,000 plus, and that's only the start, busting the borders of the area of Spain, are presented as a warning about what critics believe can occur when migration significantly outpaces border management, infrastructure planning, housing supply, and administrative capacity. What we're witnessing in Spain right now is not just mass migration controlled by governments, but invasion migration inspired by governments, left woke, morally bankrupt, vet disintegrative governments that have sort of given permission to people watching and saying, gosh, if you can get into that country so easily, let's just go for it. That has happened in the numbers of tens and thousands. Now these people are crossing the border there without any legal right. That means that all caution has been thrown to the wind by the migrants. It's a takeover. It's a micro-incremental invasion. They're not worried about whether they're entering the nation correctly or rightly. And when you think about it, and I'm asking you to think about it very carefully, Australia, the politicians, just like what happened with the Bondi terrorism attack, where 15 innocent Jewish people, thank God it was only 15 or so, which is a lot, inexcusable, escalated through a government that was vagrant and in some ways inspiring toward anti-Semitism. They allowed marches across the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge against the request and advice of the Australian people. Please don't let it happen. They never pulled up the out-of-control Middle Eastern Arabs that were screaming out, gas the Jews and kill the Jews at the Opera House. They all got away with that. And with the mass migration out of control permission for immigrants to fly into Australia because they're allowing it, the world's watching and saying these countries are easy to get into. Now, it doesn't matter on your status, where you come from, what you've done, who you are, or what your intentions are, we can get in. Now, because Australia is so far away from the rest of the world, they can only get in at great existential danger unless they fly in or come in by boat. You're not going to make it by some other means because we're too far away. As far as our border control is concerned, it's minimal and probably ineffective. But anybody that tries to enter that way is really going to be going to great lengths and putting their lives in severe danger. So they're coming through, and this is the thing, they're coming through by legal means against the will of the Australian people. According to this perspective, my perspective, pressures have not emerged all at once. They have accumulated gradually and psychologically. So people that are watching the Western world from a world that's not Western autonomously within itself, these nations for the most part are not good to live in. They're watching this from the outside and more or less saying, as they come to their conclusions about these governments, that these governments don't care. If I was sitting in another country right now, watching the ISIS brides and ISIS fighters reality show play out and saying, look, you can be an ISIS fighter, a murderer, a terrorist and still be allowed back into Australia. Even if it's consequential, you're going to get 3 meals a day and looked after one way or another. I'd go for it. I'd go, I'm heading to Australia. Because these not only the psychological aspects of this, but the personal aspects of this, watching it, it's gradual. The confidence and the consequences accumulate gradually. First, from where these people come from, they make their assessments. Yeah, this is going to be easy. Then at the borders, as they cross, be it fly in legitimately or bust over, then through accommodation systems, because they know, and I'm speaking to Australians, they know they're going to be accommodated at our expense. Housing, they'll get, healthcare, education, policing, transport, infrastructure and government expenditure. Let me just say, the ISIS brides are costing anywhere between 1 million to 5 million, up to 30 million plus over a decade to be supervised in Australia. The central lesson, viewers, advanced by these and my commentary is preventative rather than reactive. How do we prevent this? We cannot rely on the politicians. They're not going to stop this. They're going to let the country go into a population and culture demise, a financial demise. I'd argue that once population pressures begin to exceed institutional capacity, the government's going to face increasingly difficult and expensive choices. But they're not going to face those choices at their own expense. They need to keep their jobs. It's going to come at the consequences of us, our expense, not just psychologically within our communities and within the welfare of our states and families. And this is where our confidence is going to decline even further, as we believe that planning has failed to keep pace with these catastrophic changes. My conclusion today, viewers, and I'm taking this very seriously because I'm completely rattled by what we're witnessing in Spain, is the more covert way in which the Australian government's doing it by fleet, by aircraft fleet. They're bringing them in by aircraft. And for Australia, the argument that prevention is easier than recovery is not an argument at all. Prevention has to be taken, but they're not going to. Immigration policy, border security, infrastructure investment, housing construction, and economic planning has all failed. It's failed under this government and will continue to fail. I don't think it's retrievable. The economic planning should have operated in conjunction with all of this, but political pursuit overtook any rationale in relative to the politicians' duty of care of our nation. They've failed us. And I'm sorry, but that's the only conclusion that I can come to. And it's scary and it's fearful. In our family, we've decided that geographically Australia is one of the most wonderful nations on the earth. But economically and politically, Australia is destitute, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And in the bigger picture of it, whether you like Donald Trump or not, he's been a fantastic restraint against evil, and when he's gone, evil will have no restraint. It's going to go wild. So together with the population growth, the intrusive, invasive population growth that we've asked for to stop, or at least be dramatically reduced, the nation's capacity to provide services and maintain social stability and preserve public confidence is gone. It's gone. Don't kid yourself. It's gone. And this is my warning to Australians. If population growth, this is a warning. As just an Australian citizen watching what's happened to this nation, micro-incrementally to where it's culminated to now. If population growth consistently exceeds the country's ability to expand housing, infrastructure, public services and economic opportunity, the resulting pressures could become increasingly catastrophic and unable to reverse. It's irreversible. Whatever one's preferred migration policy, the enduring lesson argued by these commentators, by myself, is that governments should anticipate long-term capacity constraints, which they're not going to, because they've already become entrenched. It's too late. Australia, the way it's planned ahead, which there is no plan ahead, retains more options than one that waits until accumulated pressures have become a crisis. We are in crisis. We are in real time watching Australia be sent into, for many, at least the middle class and lower class, a third world nation. Most people are going to work. Number one, 1/3 of their wage will go to tax. Number two, most of their wage will go to rent or housing if they can find it. Number three, that only gives them enough to be able to pay their other bills and try and get shopping. Australia has become a financial, economical disaster. It sounds so negative, and I really don't want to be negative, but unless you come to that place, and within all this, within all of the trouble that we're in as Australians, the politicians are not listening to us, they're ignoring us, they're going in the opposite direction to our welfare and duty of care and against our nation. And being a First Nations, I'm watching this and I'm just going, they just don't care. They're running derelict. The politicians have become derelict. What I'm going to suggest is, in closing, enjoy the land and the things that we've been given freely, even though you can't go fishing now without a permit. I don't know what gave them the right to do that. They're making us pay for things that are free, supposed to be free, God-given. The politicians have made themselves God, and that's the beginning of the end of any civilization. Australia's in a catastrophic state. Enjoy what you can freely. Try and work out in a minimal way to live if you're not rich, if you're just a week-to-weeker like I am. Be very wise. Stay straight, stay away from drugs and all those mind-altering things. And be as wise as you can to navigate, because the politicians aren't coming to save you. They've already proven they're going to come and take whatever they can from you. Doesn't matter how hard it is for you to earn it. They're going to come and take what they can from you. They don't give a shit about what you think, what your advice is, or anything like that. They're going to do what pleases them. Social media has each day, over and over and over, exposed their moral bankruptcy. So nobody's coming to save you. Live your life as wisely as you can. Because the government, I'm sorry, is just not on your side. Enjoy the land and be as shrewd as you can with the money that you get, because the government will take from you whatever it can. It doesn't give a care less at all, and we've seen it over and over again.